Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group and What's Up Kansas City. And today we have a special guest, one of my fraternity brothers, Mr. Jesse Barnes. Just received his doctorate, works in the ministry in general. Welcome to the program, Jesse.
It's an honor to be here.
Same to have you. You had some major accomplishments. What I'd like you to do is tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and I want you to tell from kindergarten. Run your story down. Give your story to our audience.
All right. Well, I am a native of Wichita, Kansas. I was raised and went to the Wichita Public Schools, and child of a pastor. My mother was a teacher. And they really pushed us. A lot of people say this, but they really pushed us to pursue our dreams, and I had a lot of support in that community. It really was like a village. And when I had a family friend who was Martin Luther King III's roommate. So that was the way I found out, and I went to Morehouse College.
All right.
So from there,
pedigree.
So after my parents promised me that I had to come back home, and when I came back home, I was able to work at the Kansas African American Museum.
What was that like?
That was a really wonderful experience. I learned so much about the history of how blacks had migrated to Kansas. I learned about the culture and how when a lot of we were blessed in that area to have a lot of great educators and leaders because they didn't have the opportunity sometimes.
How old were you when you worked there approximately?
23.
23. Coming from a black college.
Yes.
How much more did that enlighten you to your heritage? And two-part question: do you think at 23 your contemporaries knew as much as you knew about our heritage?
I certainly don't think that my contemporaries knew as much about my heritage because Morehouse wanted us to be enlightened on that. They discussed melanin. They discussed our African heritage.
All right. Because I think before we came on air, I was showing you some things with some high school and different things.
Yes.
And I didn't go into the sports stuff. A lot of my athletes over the last 2 or 3 years, they came out of Lincoln Prep even, asked them why did they choose HBCUs, and one of the major reasons was they wanted to learn more about their heritage.
Right.
I couldn't believe that though. I thought they were just for the camera, but one after another, they were saying their dad or mom had said different things, but it wasn't being taught in school, and they thought it was going to be a good fit.
Well, that's a great point. I'm a child of the 90s, and at that time, they were doing a lot with the sweatshirts and T-shirts, and to promote. It was a resurgence for HBCUs, and with historically black colleges, they were doing more recruitment and involvement. And there was and then the film Boys in the Hood talked about how one of the characters goes to Morehouse. So that influenced me as well.
So what high school did you go to there?
Wichita Heights High School.
Wichita, what was that like?
It was overall a really good experience for me.
Did you play sports or drama or what did you know? Tell the audience a little bit about that.
My father had been a high school state wrestler, and he had done really well. I wrestled. I wasn't that great in wrestling. I ran cross country, but he really was proud that I excelled in debate and forensics. I was the newspaper editor. I was on student council. And I lettered in those things. So that's why I had a really enriching experience.
So run it down what you were doing in the ministry and how did you get there?
I have always felt a calling in my life. And I am now in what my mother calls a blending of what I've had. I've been in education and the arts. but now I'm at a church, Grace United Community Ministries, that focuses on outreach.
And where's that located? Tell them.
It's at 811 Benton Boulevard, right in the heart of historic Northeast Kansas City, Missouri.
All right. And what's going on there? What kind of programs do you have? I know I did some things with you last year. We were trying to raise a little money. And you had some other programs there. And you know what? I had been looking, and brain lock, I had been looking for someone that could put me in contact with some Haitians. And I think you had some of the, I'm talking about the last week, so that I can bring them on to talk about what's going on in Haiti. So there were 2 or 3 programs that I seen that y'all had, from food giveaways to some other things. Tell our audience a little bit about what you're doing over there.
Thank you. We have been fortunate, and I appreciate the support that Cascade Media did for us during the pandemic. But we have an after-school program where we provide meals for children, kindergarten through 6th grade, and we partner with Kansas City Public Schools. We provide, what's unique is one-on-one tutoring, reading, enrichment, and math.
Oh, that's excellent. The only other thing that you need to get going there, and hopefully the Kansas City Business Association can partner with you all on some things, is financial literacy.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's one of the major things that we as black people and people of color in general, we've got to really learn how to work with our finances.
Oh, yes.
That's been a holdback for Cascade Media Group, because I really hadn't had the training and shooting from the hip, and you can't shoot from the hip when you're doing this, dealing with these dollars.
That's true.
So talk to us about, you got your doctorate. Don't you got to get a master's before you get your doctorate?
So I'm married, and my wife was originally from Kansas City. Her grandfather was a Kansas City Monarch.
What?
Yes, her grandfather was Bullet Rogan, and he played in the World Series that you have here in the 20s. So there's a rich history for her here in this area, and I've been blessed to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. So we've been here in Kansas City for about 14 years. 10 years ago, I received my master's from the University of Missouri in Kansas City.
Oh, in what?
In education, curriculum, and instruction.
How did you use that per se?
Well, I used that for educational programming when I was director of Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Heritage Center. And then I went on to be a dean of students for a charter school, Banneker Charter School.
Banner? Oh, Benjamin Banneker?
Benjamin Banneker.
All right, because, we were over there years ago with the STEM and what have you, and I interviewed the superintendent,
yes,
and I think the principal at that time.
Yes.
I think we need more of that. What is Banneker doing now? Or are you up on it?
Yes, Banneker unfortunately is no longer in existence.
That's why I asked, because I'm busy doing this and that, and when I go down 75th Street, I'm like, what's going on with that school?
Yeah, it has become the children's place. They provide services for children.
So, what made you go and want to get a doctorate?
Several reasons. It was a life goal, and I want to pursue. I have a lifelong pursuit of education, and I felt that was one of the top things that I could do in my field. And I was blessed to Wednesday defend my dissertation, and I am now.
What was your dissertation on?
I focused on my program, the effect of an after-school academic enrichment program on urban children reading achievement.
Well, excuse me. Run some of your analysis down of what your doctorate. What were you talking about?
So I did a quantitative study and causal comparative study on two of the assessments that we provide. So we have an assessment, the Burns and Roll inventory that we do for first, second, and third graders to see where they are. So that's for an emerging reader, a beginning reader, and we test their phonics skills. Then we have for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, we have a test, the core maze reading inventory that tests their levels of reading comprehension.
Tell me this: do you find that the tests that they give generally from education fits African Americans or people of color? I don't take tests really well, and it made me think that there was something wrong with me. And I think we talked a little bit about the fraternity, and I told you when I went to Central State on the MIC Club, I had to go to the library for 6 weeks, and before you could even pledge. And I just thought people were born smart. And till Kappa opened my eyes when they made you go, I started seeing my classmates, some of them in study groups. And I was like, Dad, that's the problem. You're not studying. And how do you see our kids, because you've been in this, see themselves as it relates to their ability to assimilate into the system, the structure, and and are these tests and things designed for them?
There has been a lot of discussion on assessments having a cultural bias.
All right.
And I feel that was something that we want to. So we found a lot of our reading have things that possibly have a person of color or they have a name, because we have children that are global.
Right.
And so we want to incorporate that. And they, but we were fortunate. That is why I say I had a good experience. My mother, before there were really books of color, she made sure we had Ezra Jack Keats, who I found out later was white, but his Peter's Chair and the Snowy Day depicted black children. And my brother, before he has young children now, but he collected Kadir Nelson's work. I collect Jerry Pinkney's work because they show a global and they're black artists. So we started with picture books for children.
That's what I'm not really understanding, even on switching gears, this white supremacy stuff. We now pass all of that. We living in a global situation where we got people that look different, speak different, but we all human beings, part of the human family. And I'm wondering what education is really going to look like in the next 10 years even, because now from an economic standpoint, I'm hearing people say, why go to college? And I'm almost with that, because it puts you in these financial situations. And one thing I noticed coming out of college in 75, that I would say 75% of the people go to college, get these degrees, don't even work in the degree that they study for. And you have that debt. How do you feel about that?
I certainly want to find some solutions that can help people, but I am an advocate for pursuing higher education. I do think we need to figure out pools. We can do community support. I was supported going to college. I've had scholarships from various, some smaller, some larger, but from various organizations, and I think it's because you have to think of ways to fund it.
Tell me this, how do you feel, you've been here in Kansas City, how do you feel the public education system has worked thus far for black people? And 641-227-2830 and our community zip codes.
There have certainly been challenges, but I do admire Dr. Mark Bedell's work and Dr. Darrell Davis's work and others that are part of the Kansas City Public Schools. Urban education in the past 20 25 years has faced numerous challenges.
What do you think are the biggest challenges for urban education?
I think that there was a time where we had more parental support. And the first thing is, I was read to in the womb. So to whom much is given, much is required. I had ordinary people, but they gave us extraordinary experiences. And I think we had parents that, it used to be the saying that education was going to save the race.
All right.
That was an old adage that they would say that's where they pushed education. And I came from people that my great grandfather taught my grandmother multiplication. She was on the farm. My grandmother, my grandfather taught my father. My father taught me multiplication. So they spent the time.
Yeah, and that's why you can add and subtract. I didn't have nobody teaching me. And I told you, I'm not ashamed of any of my stuff. I had shop, and gym. And in New York, you could get 3 types of diplomas to graduate. You had the general, that's what I had. You had the commercial, where you took bookkeeping, typing, and things. Then you had the regular academic, where you took 4 years of language, 4 years of math, and what have you. But all of them let you graduate. But when you start going to the next level, you didn't have the tools. As my first year, I went down to Virginia State, man, and was on full scholarship. Bumped up the next semester in all remedial classes, and was so ashamed and embarrassed that I went to Manhattan College that summer and took some courses, got my grades up, and my people's lawyer shipped me off to Central State. And again, I wanted to be a Kappa. They introduced me to that library, and I'm very thankful for that, because that was a awakening for me. I thought something was wrong with me. It wasn't nothing wrong with me. I was smarter than most people. But if you don't train your mind, So how do you see let's say our young high schoolers, where do you see the majority that right here in Kansas City on their awareness of how important education is?
There's a range. What you went through was tracking. And I was fortunate to have Martin Luther King's sister, Dr. Christine King Ferris, as one of my instructors, and she talked about how dangerous tracking was.
I'm not even understanding tracking. Run that down.
So tracking was where they told students, this is what you're going to be, instead of allowing you to have the choice of who you are. So, you're on the track for secretarials, or you're on the track for more of a industrial,
all right.
Or you're on the track to be an executive. And I feel in some ways I was positively tracked. They would put me in, I would go to, even in middle school, like a leadership workshop luncheon. I was one of the children that were chosen, but all children don't have that. And you want to make children feel like they can achieve.
When we were talking about reading, my mind be all over the place. I wanted to point that out, because I don't go by a lot of other people what they saying. I go by my experiences, and I know how I felt. I can still see on the pages in the 3rd and 4th grade running Dick and Jane and Sally and what have you. And when I have these conversations, some people will like I'm got a problem against white people, and I'm more like, my son's married to, it's one race, a human race, and we all out of Africa. No matter what color you are, what religion, it all begins there. But when you are in a situation where everything, I like to listen to, sometime I'll listen to Muhammad Ali and Dick Cavett. He's interviewing them, and he's talking about everything is white is good and everything is black is bad, and you never see the black hero or the person of color. It was always Superman. It was always this and that, and that, I guess part of that is why I was thinking that I wasn't on top of things, because where everything doesn't look like you, how do you the educator, how do you think that plays on our young kids' minds and their ability to want to reach for the sky?
That is a very powerful discussion. In fact, I did an exhibit once on the power of an image, which was why Ebony magazine was so pervasive in essence and so forth, because it gave a global viewpoint. In the 70s, it started being a movement where you saw more black action toys and black dolls and so forth. But there is a lot with that psychologically where you need to see, and that's why they have, I think it's important that our children, I have children that are from Asia, from Africa, from Central America, and we try to make sure they're toys, we make sure that they're books that are globally represented. But if, many of the children are from Africa, they've not seen books, so I read different books from different perspectives, but sometimes you can have a bias too much with your own race. You can, everything has to be this. So I try to be. I've learned some things to be more inclusive of others.
It's been hard for me. I overcompensate, audience, because I'm like Black Power Ungawa, and when I want to try to moderate, I'm like, why are you trying to show this when you know that Europeans have had control of 100% of all forms of media, and I might feel bad that I keep going that hard with my community, but and it's a difficult situation because you want to be inclusive, but at the same time there's so many things that we're doing in our community that is so underrepresented that it's hard for me to say, well, because I'm like, well, the white media is covering that, or the white media is doing that, and they're not covering that. But at the same time, understanding that major media, whether they're covering black, white, or green, you still need a pushback because all you getting is their side of the story, and it's always two sides to the story, and especially on all this police violence and what have you. Thank God for these cameras because this stuff has been going on forever. And I think before we got on air, we looked at some education videos, and you seen each one of those kids said that they had problems coming through middle school being black in an all-white environment. And how do we bring our majority community to understand our plight, and how do we bring our community to understand their plight?
Right.
Because I talk white and black. A lot of people don't want to have these conversations, Jesse. I'm like, you don't understand how the white community really feels. They've been, just like you've been fed stuff. If you've been fed all your life that you are privileged or you this, and you see it, it's not like I can say the white person this and that. The studies say we can't even catch up economically for 200, and you know that. So, and now somebody's trying to take that from you. We would react the same. To me, we would react the same way. Power doesn't want to, and so I try to get my audience to say, walk in their shoes for a minute. Yeah, they all this and that, but we the same way. And if we had the power, how would we distribute it? And so using this tool, this medium, and having legitimate conversations with people that are educated and that are working not just on this physical plane, but you working on a different plane also, I feel. And then what you telling me, you come out of a family that has a long history of education and with the church. That, I'm looking at you, and the first thing I'm thinking is Denzel Washington. Yeah, I'm just saying, when I listen to what he says about his, it was similar to your situation. So what else you want to let the people know about you, Jess?
I've shared quite a bit. I am fortunate. I'm glad for this opportunity to move forward. I'm wanting to do more, being an advocate of education.
2021, 2022, tell the audience.
2021, 2022, we want to do more. I want to do more at Grace United. I think it's important to have conversations about current issues, especially race. I've had some friends of mine that were white or other races that have had private conversations because they want to have peace in their communities and in the area and throughout the nation.
Right, throughout the nation. You
Yes.
heard the man?
So we want that. And I do believe that education is a catalyst for helping people. But with that, there's social emotional with that. There is feeling.
All right, see, you using the terms that I talk to them about social emotional.
Well, with our children, there's been so much discussion because so many people have been ostracized from each other due to the pandemic. And so the mental health and depression and sadness, we were fortunate that we were actually we had about 40 children from October until now on our site. And they were so happy to be on site together. We did follow social distancing and have masks, but we were on site together. And again, like I said, I had children. What was amazing for me was we started a preschool. This will be our third school year of that. But with the preschools, I had children that were from Asia and from many from Africa and from Central America, and a couple of that were just born here in the States. But with the snow, one was a little girl. She was from Tanzania, and she didn't talk much. But it snowed in April. I was frustrated. I said, what in the world, snow in April? But for her, she said, oh my gosh, it snowed. So there are things that you learn from the children's innocence that you could just never have.
Right. I like that. So, in closing, what would you have to say to our community?
I think that we need to celebrate more of our community. This Kansas City, for me, has been wonderful. Everything has challenges, but I've been able to meet some wonderful people. I think there's a lot of great pockets here, but I think we need to support each other more.
Boy, see, you keep beating me to the damn punch. Because I was getting ready to ask you, what do you have to say on unity in our community?
Yes. We definitely need to support each other, support businesses like Cascade. We need to support, but we need to do some more networking and technology actually is a way to bridge the divide.
Well, that's what Cascade's about. Again, you go to the network, you learn.
Yes.
Everybody has these different experiences, and we can benefit from it because all of us have cell phones. It's like, we pull everything else up, pull what's going on in your community up. So, in closing, as I always say, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.